Yes, I'm a foodie, and at the same time, I don't like what happens to my body when I focus on food. It seems like the more I want to lose weight, the more I seem to gain weight. So I went straight to the top and invited one of my favorite authors and teachers on food and balance, Geneen Roth, to the show. Geneen is the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Women, Food, and God. You've seen her on The Oprah Show, 2020, the NBC Nightly News, The View, CBS Early Show, The Dr. Oz Show, and Good Morning America, just to name a few. She's been written up and writes for the Oprah Magazine, Cosmopolitan, Time, Elle, The New York Times, Good Housekeeping Magazine, and Prevention Magazine. Geneen's the author of 9 books, including bestsellers Lost and Found and When Food is Love. Without further ado, please welcome to my show, Geneen Roth. Hi, Geneen.
Hi, glad to be here.
I'm so glad that you are here, and thank you so much for coming here. I found you about 12 years ago with one of my favorite books that I recommend to almost everybody called When You Eat at the Refrigerator, Pull Up a Chair. And we're going to be talking about a lot of the concepts from there today. And if you can see me, I don't know if you're actually online, but one of the principles that I never forgot was no matter what the occasion, even if it's going to the grocery store, we feel good when we dress up. So today, in your honor, I dressed up. And I feel great. So
Good.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's get to some of the questions that I've collected over the past week from my listeners. One is, why do we keep going on these diets? Why don't we stay on our diets? What is it about that perpetual emotional eating, the compulsive dieting? Why do we keep falling off that beam?
I think many of us know that we'd like to feel good, that we'd like to feel better, and we think that if we force ourselves, use a lot of willpower, then somehow we can do it. And so we put ourselves on programs and or regimes that might be difficult for us to follow, in part because we're afraid, I think, and I've been thinking a lot about trust and fear these days. I think a lot of us are afraid that if we actually listen to ourselves, then somehow we will do bad things for ourselves. We'll never stop eating. We'll never exercise. That if we trust ourselves, what we'll find out is that there's nothing to trust. And so we don't go that far, and we keep putting ourselves on programs that we don't particularly want to be on, eating things that we don't particularly want to eat, eating in a way that we don't particularly believe in, and then we don't follow them.
Right. And that principle of throwing away your bathroom scale, and which means basically not watching and not dieting, is tied into this. Why are we punishing ourselves? Why do we spend most of our time obsessing about what we can't eat or what we shouldn't eat, and not get anywhere? I love that part where you say, if beating ourselves up and criticizing our bodies and constantly berating ourselves worked as a diet tool, we'd all be skinny. Right? Right?
That's right. That's right. We have a belief somehow that criticism and shame and force and willpower will lead us to long-lasting change. And so we shame and deprive and criticize ourselves, and then we end up shame-deprived and criticize human beings, frightened people, and who don't actually change. And so what I'm talking about, in a way, is is about dieting and food, and in another way, it's about a different way to live, to be in your life, to be comfortable in your own skin. I think a lot of people listen to me, and I wrote my first book in 1982, Feeding the Hungry Heart, and they hear me say, oh, you're saying not to go on a diet, so you must mean that, it's okay to binge. You're saying to eat what my body wants, so that must mean I can eat what I want, whenever I want, anytime I want, and all hell breaks loose.
Right.
And that's actually not what I'm saying.
Okay.
But what I am saying is that the way we're doing it isn't working. And it hasn't worked for a very, very long time. We just keep on gaining weight, gaining more weight, going back to do the same old things that didn't work the first time. Or as somebody in a workshop said, I would die to be as thin as I was 5 years ago when I would have died to have been thinner. And yet, I can't see myself the way I am now. I'll just keep on doing the things that don't work. Then I'll gain more weight. Then I'll look at pictures of myself from 5 years ago and think, oh, why didn't I see what I looked like then?
Right.
Why didn't I love myself then? Look at me, now I'm 10 pounds heavier, fatter.
Right.
So I think the first thing is to understand that the way we're approaching it, the way we're approaching our lives, the way that we treat ourselves, talk to ourselves, and eating is a reflection of that. It's we like to separate those things and make, okay, what I eat is in this category and the way that I live is in this category. But they're exactly the same. You eat the way you live.
So that's a huge difference, or you're a pioneer in this area of linking food to actually the way your deepest beliefs about yourself, about God, about life. So your primary constructs guide the way you either overeat or undereat or don't have a healthy relationship with food. And I actually was promoting you. I was at the gym this morning, which is my practice before I come in, and I mentioned, you're the mega bestseller of Woman, Food, and God. And as soon as I said that, they went, oh, is this a religious show? Or is she a religious, what church does she teach at or preach at? And so explain for those who aren't sure about how they feel about God, what you're talking about.
I called the book Women, Food, and God for a very specific reason. Number one, I feel like your relationship with food is a reflection of your relationship to your life, which includes all your beliefs about what's possible for you, your relationships, if you've given up on yourself, if you feel like a deeper, bigger life is possible or not. And so that's number one. Number two, I wanted to get people's attention. This issue is often written off as a women's issue that only has to do with willpower. And if you work hard enough at it, and if you could just keep yourself on the straight and narrow, then you would lose weight and keep it off, and then you would be happy in the whole rest of your life. And I have never found that to be true with myself and the tens of thousands of people I've worked with. And I wanted people to understand that what we're talking about here is big. We're talking about nothing, smaller than your beliefs about what's possible for you in your life and what the world beyond appearances is, which is the world of beliefs, thoughts, fears, possibilities, and hope. And to me, that is spiritual. And I thought that if I called it Women, Food, and Spirituality, then nobody would care. If I called it Women, Food, and God, then people could relate to it in whatever way they related to what they most believe in as possibility and the world beyond appearances.
Yes.
And it worked.
Yes.
It got a lot of people's attention.
Well,
Now,
it got
of course,
Oprah's
a lot
attention.
of people
Oprah
got angry with me.
Okay.
Because of the way that I was using the word God, and I understand that. And it also got their attention. So I wanted to get people's attention that this is big.
Yeah.
It's not a little thing, that there's hardly any woman that I know that isn't suffering from thoughts about her body and beliefs that if only she were thinner, then she would be happy, which of course never ever works.
Right.
Because when somebody loses weight, then one of two things happens. Well, they spend 10 minutes being happy. And then the next thing is they raise the bar and think, well, if only I had lost 5 more pounds or 10 more pounds, then I would be happier. And so they go on to the next goal. Or else they see, oh, gee, I thought this was going to be the cure-all, the panacea. I thought everything that was wrong in my life was now going to be right. And it's not. And there's a great deal of disappointment, a feeling of betrayal, and this often sense that I don't know what to do because I thought this was the cure-all.
Right. And I look back, I've, gained and I've lost. And when I would say, I'll feel good about myself when I've reached this weight or this goal, or when I've lost 10 pounds or when I've lost 20 pounds. And, after one of my greatest life lessons, a difficult divorce, I was on the divorce diet and I lost 35 pounds in about 8 months. And I think back and I can remember people going, dang, you look good. And was I happy? Maybe for 10 minutes. You're right. It's like 10 minutes like, oh yeah, check me out and I've got size 0 on. And yet and now when I look back at the picture, it's like, wow, I did not look very healthy. And yet, in society standards, I looked good. I was in a 0, I was in a 2, and that's when you're supposed to be happy with the way that you look and the weight that you are. And you're absolutely right on. It's got nothing to do with the weight or the size. It has everything to do with how you see yourself. And no matter if you aren't in love with yourself, if you can't find yourself, if you can't be okay with yourself exactly as you are, not saying that you don't want to lose weight, not saying that you don't want to do anything different, then you'll never be happy, no matter what. And I thank you in in your book, that refrigerator book that I love, that when you say acting, it's about acting on your own behalf. It's about making decisions that are good for you, that you don't feel like that you're acting you're not doing something to harm yourself. Do you feel good about the decisions you're making? And that's different than willpower, because willpower is that little voice that, in any addiction, I have this little voice that says, who's telling you can't have that ice cream? Who's telling you can't have that cigarette? Who's telling you that you can't have that drink? No one's the boss of you. Go ahead and have it. And so, no, that's not good. That's not good. I got to be strong. And then if you actually do cross that line and take that drink or have that Haagen-Dazs or whatever that thing that your voice just told you not to do, then the voice comes back and go, you are a piece of, you can't do anything you say to yourself. You can't keep any promise to yourself. And you're just as worthless as everybody told you when you were growing up. All that is the same, that monkey mind, that critical mind, the critical chatter that is very hooked into the way we see ourselves or the way we have that belief system in spirituality. So yes,
and I think what happens that most people don't realize that I wrote about in Women, Food, and God is that we are in a constant struggle with ourselves. In a way, we're constantly at war with ourselves. When we're dieting, we feel good about ourselves. When we're not dieting and or binging, we feel bad about ourselves. And that voice that I write about and teach about a lot, which is a voice of harshness and criticism, that voice is prominent in many of our lives. And I think this is true about myself because I dieted and binged for many, many years and gained and lost thousands of pounds. And when I stopped dieting, many people, talk to me about the moment I stopped dieting. But what was true about that, it wasn't as significant as that I stopped dieting as that I stopped fighting with myself.
Important.
I stopped blaming myself.
Right.
And diets were my most flagrant attempt at blaming myself, criticizing myself. It was a way that I felt like I was good and that I needed to be good because when I wasn't being good, I felt like I was bad.
Right.
And so that ricocheting between feeling like I'm trying to be good, can't everybody see I'm trying to be good, I'm eating the right things, I'm exercising every day, I'm, not eating a lot of this or a lot of that. And in those days, it was a whole different of I'm not eating a lot of this and a lot of that.
Right.
In those days, it had to do with just calories. It didn't have to do with carbs and fat and the glycemic index and nothing like that. It was just flat out 1,200 calories a day, period. I just dropped the whole thing. And because I was suicidal, and I realized, and I had also been anorexic, and I, like you, hadn't been happy at 82 pounds or 88 pounds, whatever I was. And I saw that no matter what I had ever weighed, I had never, ever been happy. And I did not want to keep living like that.
Right.
And so I felt like I wanted to end my life. What I saw was what I didn't want to keep doing was hating myself. And I didn't know if it was possible to be alive and live with an ongoing sense of contentment, no matter what I weighed, which is not an excuse to, eat chocolate cake 3 times a day.
Okay, so there's
and
the
gain 50
balance.
pounds.
There's the balance. Right. So I think that's an important anchor here that, we're extremists. Especially some personalities, it's either black, white. And so not dieting means we can have anything we want, which is not what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you remove it from the food area for a second, and I know this is very hard to do because we're using food as the doorway, and that's the beautiful thing about food. We have to eat 3 times a day or a couple of times a day. And so we get to see what we're thinking and what we're believing through what we're putting into our mouths many times a day. If I am hungry and I'm also feeling a little lonely at the same time, or I walk in the door from work and I feel that transition space that many people feel where I don't exactly know what to do with myself. I feel a little lost and I don't know how to deal with feeling lost or bored or sad or angry. Then if I turn to food in that moment when I'm not hungry, so let's just say I'm not hungry. I know I started off saying I am hungry, but let's just say I'm not hungry.
Right.
Then what I'm doing in that moment is using food as a drug. I am not using food because my body wants that food, because I'm hungry, because it will nourish me. I'm using it to take away what I'm feeling. And that's the tricky thing here. So when people hear me say not to diet, they hear me giving themselves permission to use food as a drug. Okay, she must be telling me that it's okay to eat whatever I want whenever I want. I'm not saying that. I'm saying come back to your body, come back to your breath, come back to what nourishes you. And in the realm of food, you have to really pay attention here, because when you take off the restriction of the way you're supposed to be eating,
right.
usually the first thing that comes up is that you want to eat the way you're not supposed to be eating,
right.
because that's the other side. But if you ask yourself what your body wants, and this often takes some time, then you'll find that it's not sugar and it's not processed carbs. And which isn't to say that every once in a while, yes, and your body doesn't ever want processed carbs, except if you've been eating them the way I was. I mean, I feel like I grew up on a diet of sugar and antibiotics for 25 years. And my whole digestive system was so messed up that at the beginning, when I did start doing this, all I really wanted was sugar. And it seemed like that's actually what I really, really wanted.
Right. You thought your body wanted that. In the chat room, Tony and Beth are chatting carb loving.
Yes. I mean, I think that, for many years, even while I was doing this, if I had but this is tricky because we go from should, shouldn't, right, wrong, good, and bad, and we live in a world of polarities. And many of us have lived with food in that world of polarity. So the second you take off, it's sort of like a get out of jail card, get out of jail free. Right. You feel like, whoopee! Let me just go to the bakery because this is what I really, really want. Because given free realm, like that old movie about what's the old movie? Groundhog Day, where at the beginning of when Bill Murray realized that he was just going to be living every single day the same, and whatever he did the day before had no consequences for the next day. He spent an entire day eating nothing but sweets, cheesecake and apple pie and all of that, because it's like, wow, there are no consequences. And there don't have to be consequences on one level, on the emotional level. Now, of course, there will be, because if you eat like that, it will affect your body chemistry and therefore your emotions. But if you don't, rag on yourself and punish yourself and shame yourself and deprive yourself,
that's very important.
You actually ask yourself what your body wants. It will not be a diet of cheesecake.
Exactly, because you'll get sick. Your body will go, hey, excuse me, that's too much, or this is not making me feel good. And your body will say, but I don't have the energy, the vitality, or the radiance to do what I came here to do. And this is sapping my energy. This is bringing it up and bringing it down. And I'd rather have my energy. And this is where free choice comes in. If I have the choice, and at the beginning, if you've spent so long not having the choice, what will often happen is that you'll go in the opposite direction to, I have the choice. This means I want cheesecake all the time. But with true choice, then you also have the choice to feel well. Absolutely. And that's why, for me, balance is that 88%. I'm not going to do this perfectly. I'm not going to always eat healthy. I'm not always going to not have the occasional Cheetos or whatever the favorite thing is, because I do believe that food is pleasure, and that there are some things that really do. Food is an area of pleasure. And why should we... I've never been a fan of shakes or any kind of thing like that, because to me it's like it doesn't taste good. I would rather eat something that is beautiful to look at and tastes good. It's when I stop being in the moment with my food, when I'm not at one with my food. And as you said before, if I'm eating to try to stuff or to delay or to repress or not to feel, or my favorite is, I had a bad day, so I deserve to go and get a bag of Cheetos and sit and that's all I'm going to eat today. and I'm not even enjoying the Cheetos as I'm even eating them. I should get them as a sponsor. I don't enjoy the Cheetos as I'm eating them because that voice is going, oh, you can't, look what you're doing, and how could you do this? And now you're going to have to start over tomorrow. And you said you weren't going to eat any more carbs, and blah 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 blah. And then my other voice kicks in. You can tell I have a very active. My mind is like a dangerous neighborhood. You don't want to go in there alone. But I have another voice that says, okay, well, you blew it today. So just go and buy that Swiss almond Haagen-Dazs and go get that other, all that nice greasy fried noodle that you love, Chinese noodle, and just go ahead because tomorrow you can't have anything. And tomorrow you're going to start.
And that's how it goes
yes.
for most of us.
Yes.
We go, and that's the diet binge cycle
right
there.
Right.
And that's exactly what it is. It's just
it's
I was bad,
and
now I have to be good.
Right.
And it's not like that. What I find, and one of the most stunning parts to me about teaching my retreats is that we eat together every day. And so we sit together, everybody gets their food, sits down with a plate of their food in front of them. We wait till everybody's got their food. And this is a little challenging because with 150 or 175 people, it takes a while for everybody to get their food. And all the stuff is coming up for people who were the first people to sit down. Oh, my God, my food is getting cold. If my food is cold, that's the end of the world. Oh, you can't tell me not to eat now. And all the stuff, all the unseen, the whole unseen universe shows up with food, which is why it's so great.
And I definitely want to go ahead.
When we start eating, what happens is that people first notice how much they took. And what they took on their plates has little relationship to do with what they actually want, what their bodies actually want. Then the next, because they took it because as an 8-year-old they weren't allowed to have it, or they took it because it was served. And even though they know they're not going to feel well, this might be their only time to eat it, therefore I will take it. And then what they notice is the second, and this goes back to the Fritos, the second they put the one bite of food in their mouth, they go away. They leave. They're not even tasting the food in their mouths.
Right.
They're only thinking about the next bite and the next bite. And so what happens, and this is a metaphor for how we live most of our lives. We're not in our lives. We're not tasting the food we've got.
Yes.
We're only thinking about what we don't have. And so there's no way to actually get satisfied with anything, including your relationship with your partner, your friend, your dog, a tree,
Never
and
enough
or
money.
food,
Never enough money.
unless you're actually noticing it and it's got some place to land inside you.
Very
so
important point.
We just keep leaving ourselves for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, feeling unsatisfied, going for the next more, while never being with the abundance, the sheer abundance.
Absolutely.
Of what every single one of us who's above ground at this moment has right now.
Yes, absolutely. And that is a great place to stop for our sponsor episode. And I want to come right back and talk more about your retreats and how women can have a better relationship with food. But I do hear the sound of music right now, reminding me to thank this week's show sponsor. And that is Yvette's Bikinis. And yes, following all the great balance tools you've heard today, you will get your perfect outfit for the beauty that is you. And we're back. You're listening to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And today's very special past Oprah guest, Geneen Roth, who is a pioneer in this area of eating and not dieting, but acting on your own behalf and loving yourself and getting to the size and being happy with the size that you are, and at the same time, not going to the other extreme of eating anything that you want. And your book, Woman, Food, and God, is a mega bestseller. Please pick it up. You can get it anywhere on Amazon. Please go to her website, Geneen Roth. I believe .com. Help me out here. I think
Yes,
I've got it.
that's
Yes, there it
exactly
is.
it. You got it.
Good. And Facebook, she's on Facebook. She has an upcoming event called Woman, Food, and God 6-day retreat with Geneen, and she spoke about it a little earlier. It's at the Mount Madonna Center in Watsonville, California, and that's May 13th through the 18th, and you can get her link through the website, JeneenRoth.com. And I know I actually have a friend of mine, Kim, who went to your retreat and learned a lot. And it's an important, I think, juncture for anyone who is really tired of that hamster wheel of dieting and not dieting and feeling really bad about the way that they look. I really wanted you to come on this show, especially now, because last month we talked about, how our own, and this is more women than men, and I talked about it, I won't say it again, about the genetic difference, but it does seem an area that women just have a difficult time feeling good about themselves. And I drove this morning, I drove my kids to school, and we carpool with this other set of kids, and it just, case in point, I turned around and I said to the teenage girl, I said, "Do you like the way your body looks?" And she said, "No." And then I turned to her brother, a teenage boy, and I said, "Do you like the way your body looks?" And he goes, "Yes." And so it starts young. They've done studies, I think, like the age is younger and younger, and we can blame society or the modeling magazines or whatever it is. My joke is, can't we go back to the Renaissance days when the plump, I'm not fat, I'm puffy, and it's actually a good thing to aspire to. But I don't think it's about blame. I really think it's about how can we be happy with the way that we look, exactly as we look, and at the same time make choices that are good for us. And that consequence factor is true. If I am only going to survive on eating when I think I have a yen for whatever it is, and not think about the consequences, or think that it really is not, I'll walk tomorrow, or I'll go to the gym tomorrow, or it's too late. I give. This is who I am, what I am, and how I am, and it's never going to change. Then we've lost that beautiful ability to live in joy. And our relationship with food is absolutely about our belief about, are we worthy? Are we enough? Are we good enough? Can we be happy exactly where we are as we are? And I absolutely love the way you say an emphatic yes in your books, and you teach women and men to live in that space. And for that, I am so grateful for you and your words of wisdom and the way that you put them in your retreats and your books and the way you speak. So I'm giving you the Dr. Marissa Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award today for all the work that you do.
Thank you. I want to say that when we talk about loving ourselves, and I want to back up a little bit and say that I do this work because the amount of self-loathing that I felt for myself for so long was so strong. And I still at moments struggle with it. I wouldn't say anymore that it's self-hatred. But there's still some degree of blame, and I would say that there's a harsh voice that I'm always having to be on the outlook for, or the lookout for, because there are times when I really, really believe it, and I feel that I just don't deserve to be alive, and so, or that I have to atone for my own existence,
which is a lie.
For a long time, dieting and depriving myself was the way that I did that, and I think that it's easier for people to think about and for women to think about, and I know this is an issue for men as well, but for the most part I deal with women because I am one, and I write only from personal experience, and I teach from personal experience, and so I know what it's like to be in a woman's body, and therefore I speak about the issue from a woman's perspective, that to realize that, and I keep saying this, but I really want people to know this isn't just about food.
Yes.
You could look at, Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist teacher, I think her new book is called Anything is a Path to Everything. And so what I do is I use food as a path inside to see what you really, really believe and where you've given up on yourself and where you feel like who you are is wrong, like you're the wrong person to be living your life, and where you feel like you don't have enough and what you're paying attention to, because enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not attractive enough, I don't have enough success, I don't have enough love. That lack of enough is often the reason why many people keep turning to food, because I can't have enough love and I'll never get that job promotion, but what I can get right now is a whole quart of ice cream. And therefore, since I'm never going to have enough of what I actually do want, I might as well get something I also sort of want, but not really. Ice cream, the first taste of it comes pretty close to bliss, but after that, it's not the same as love. But at least you can get it and buy it and have it, and it doesn't talk away, and it doesn't get drunk, and it doesn't walk out, and it doesn't abuse you, and it's always there. And, there are a lot of good things to say about food, which is the reason why people get so-called addicted to having it. And by what they get addicted to is and there's a physiological explanation for the whole sugar, carbohydrate thing, but on a deeper level, what people are addicted to is getting that feeling of not enoughness taken away, because they don't know what to do with it. And so we become adept at, and if you want to call it addicted to, becoming numb and at least taking the edge off. And so if we could see that big word, loving ourselves, actually breaks down into many little concrete and achievable things you can do daily, then it becomes easier. Because for me, the whole thought of loving myself, when I so hated myself and hated my body, and I was a wreck around food, a wreck. I ate up, I spit up, and I threw up, and I was anorexic, and I was addicted to laxatives and diet pills, and I gained 80 pounds once in 2 months, and then I lost 80 pounds. Really, I lost my hair. I was just about the worst.
So
it was hell.
Right. So and you know the way out. So, couple practical tips then for you. You mentioned on a daily basis. How do you love yourself around food? How can a woman go, okay, I'm not going to go on a diet, but I am going to change my habits. I am going to change the way that I am acting on my own behalf. What would you say are some good practical things that they can start doing now?
I think the first thing, and nobody ever likes it when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think the first thing you have to ask yourself is, do you really want to change your relationship to yourself, or do you just want to lose 10 pounds? And I think a lot of people really just want to lose 10
pounds. Right.
What they think is, what many people say to me is, you know what, let me lose the 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 pounds first, and then I can change my relationship with myself.
Right.
So let me get that taken care of, and then I can do what you're talking about. But the thing is, they're exactly the same. Because if you lose the weight by shaming and depriving yourself, you will, as we said before, end up to be a shame deprived person who has also lost 30 pounds.
Right. You're still going to have that core of
you will
not enough.
Have that core of shame and the belief that in order to be loved in order to have what you want, you must deprive yourself. You must punish yourself. And that's what you need to ask yourself. For me, that's the core of this. First, discover what you actually want to change. Because if you decide that you want to just lose 10 pounds and you want to lose it quickly, then doing what I'm talking about isn't the quickest fix.
Right.
Then what you want is a quick fix.
Right.
And there are a lot of diets out there that will give you that.
And then the consequence of those is pretty much a yo-yo. Because
it's a yo-yo.
Yeah.
You lose the weight, you'll gain it back. You lose the weight, you'll gain it back. Or, as somebody said in a retreat years ago, after she lost 10 pounds on a diet and got a sort of one of those certificates about losing 10 pounds, she looked at me and she said, I wrote on the bottom of it, it said I lost 10 pounds, and she said on the bottom of it, and I still feel like crap.
Right.
Because you can lose the weight, but who you were, when you lose the weight, you don't lose the belief that created the weight.
And it's the same with money. I think, all
Yes,
those
it's
people,
exactly the same with
the
money.
people who win the lottery and the statistics around, they're not happy and then they lose the money. So it's the same thing. If we can't fix that, it is about God. It is about your belief about a friendly universe. It is about the belief about yourself. If you feel like you deserve to be punished, or you're not worthy, or never going to be good enough, then it's never going to be enough.
No, it's never going to be enough. And I don't know whether you know this or not, but I did write my very latest book is about money, because it's called Lost and Found, and it tells the story of my husband and I losing all of our money, and me seeing that the very beliefs that were operative in my relationship with food were also there with money, particularly and most prominently the belief that nothing was ever enough. That saying of you can never be too thin or too rich isn't there for nothing. It's there because people believe that.
Right.
And so to get back to the specifics, one important thing that you can work on immediately today in this moment, listening to us, whoever you are, wherever you are, as you listen to this, take a moment and consider what you already have enough of in your life.
Perfect.
Everybody has enough of many things in their lives.
Yes.
They could, have enough
breath.
They have enough
breath.
I was just going to say breath. And if you're above ground at this moment, and I just found out yesterday, actually late last night, that a good friend of mine is dying and of a brain tumor. And I thought in the moment that I heard, first I got very sad, and I'm still very sad.
I'm sorry.
But I also once again realized how quickly everything changes, how we're so concerned about getting the job promotion or losing 10 pounds, and then suddenly you get a diagnosis and you, in a moment, understand what is really, really important. And the things that when people are dying, they say they regret not doing and focusing on the most, and what those always are the most ordinary things. I'm sorry I didn't take more time with my kids. I'm sorry that when I walked out the door in the mornings, I didn't take 30 seconds to look around and notice the birds, hear the birds. I mean, the simplest, what we would call the most silliest, inane, everyday, not complicated things that every single one of us has that we never take time with, that the second you get a diagnosis, you suddenly realize, oh my God, those are the things on which my life actually depends, that actually means something, that bring me joy. It's not, the next pair of boots, although believe me, I'm definitely a boot person and a sweater person, and I'm always into boots and sweaters. So I'm not saying that, fashion is not important,
you're talking to
and
the
boots
choir.
are not fabulous, and chocolate is not great. I mean, boots and chocolate and sweaters, I'm all for them. But,
Yeah. Life juicing your life is the greatest joy. So enjoy
from the inside out, and
absolutely.
that you can do as you're listening right now. I'm doing it right now as we're talking. And I'm being aware of my breath. I'm aware of my body, my feet on the floor, my butt in the chair. I'm aware that I'm looking outside onto beauty. Yes. I mean, I happen to live out in the country, so I'm looking at the fog over the hills. But if I was in the city, I would be listening to traffic sounds or hearing a dog bark or, seeing a tree outside my window or whatever it was. It doesn't matter. You don't have to, be on a lake in, Lake Como or Lake Tahoe to be appreciating beauty.
Exactly.
You've got so much of it.
Yes, and that is unfortunately all the time we have, Geneen, but I definitely want to have you back on, if you will, to talk about money. I didn't know about this newest thing, and I definitely want to get more wisdom on that topic, because I think it is related to the basis of who we are and how we are happy. So
I love that, because these topics are absolutely entwined, related, and are almost the same.
Yes. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Geneen Roth, mega bestseller, Woman, Food, and God. If you haven't got it, go get it. Go to her website, www.geneenroth.com. Go sign up for her retreat. And thank you. And she will be back on. You heard it. I have it there. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to talk to you later. Thank you.
So
Bless
much.
you. Peace and blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.